So I didn't want to. I guess I didn't want to, be weak and not return.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we we don't want to leave our brothers hanging. We feel like that if we're capable, especially if you felt like you were capable to get out there and help, that's where you wanted to be with your brothers, helping with the hurricane relief or whatever.
Right.
I know exactly what you mean. We've all been in situations like that, not necessarily the exact situation where we're trying to recover from a severe attack like that, but we've been in situations where we, weren't necessarily able to help, but we felt like we needed to help at the time. That's just how we are, man, as police officers. That's just how we are. We are really dedicated to what we do. We're dedicated not only to the job, but we're also dedicated to our brothers and sisters in blue. And that's just how we are.
Yes, we are.
Even if it may not be the best, in the best interest of ourselves or whatever, we're still going to step out and do it anyway,
Yep.
So, when after all of that, you went back to work eventually. Did you stay back to work permanently, once you went back for the hurricane? Or did you go back to a point where you were back off again trying to recover from the attack?
No, I went back to work, and I changed units. I went from patrol to investigative unit with my agency. So I returned and didn't look back till I had a trigger in 2012.
Do you feel like sharing what happened in 2012?
Oh, sure. In 2012, I was I took a call at night from one of the sergeants that who told me that one of the guys, the primary guy called, the one who initiated the attack. The primary guy had been involved in a motorcycle chase, and that they had arrested him and what have you. So again, being in investigations, I took it upon myself to read a report and look at pictures and what have you, and from there discovered that he had a folding knife which was opened, and it was photographed on the ground. Now I didn't mention that the guy that initially attacked me was on probation at the time of the attack for having punched a state trooper in the jaw and breaking his jaw. So he had a history of not liking police, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. So from that, the incident where he had been stopped with the open knife, I had a very, very extremely vivid nightmare that caused my, I guess, downfall from where I had reached the point where I was diagnosed or told that was a trigger for PTSD.
There was a glitch in the system, and I missed part of that. Just to make sure that we get it, you said that because of that investigation involving one of the brothers that attacked you, it triggered a PTSD event. Is that right?
It triggered the PTSD, which I had gone undiagnosed up to that point. I didn't know that I had PTSD until after I went to see a specialist and a psychiatrist, who then diagnosed me with PTSD, and they in turn told me that nightmare was a trigger, what they call the trigger of the PTSD, which is one of the problems that I'm going through now with trying to battle through.
Yeah. And so it's basically went on since 2012 where you've actually known about the PTSD.
Right. It's a daily problem for me. I don't know how it is for anyone else. I'm struggling with headaches. I've had headaches since more or less that time frame, on a daily basis, where I could be sound asleep at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll sit up just out of bed and realize that, oh man, I have horrible headaches. So, I mean, I go to sleep with headaches. I wake up with headaches, and it's a daily thing. Um, it's a struggle for me right now.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And, before this, I was a healthy guy. I used to power lift. I worked out. I ran. At the time of the attack, I was running a mile and working out heavy. So I was what I considered to be in good shape. And I guess the Lord designed it that way. Put me on a track to being healthy and staying strong. And the reason was because he had something in store for me or prepared for me, and that I had to survive or battle over. And it was a turning point in my life, which has been difficult to battle, but I'm still on my feet and still making the best that I can right now, or doing the best that I can right now.
And that's all we can do, from working with you, what was it, 4 years that we worked together here in Franklin before you went down to Florida. I know how you felt about this job. I know that you enjoy doing what we do. I can only assume that it continued when you went to Florida, that you love doing what we do,
Oh yes, I was what I consider to be a very active and proactive officer. I learned that from the guys in Franklin that I still look up to it now. And I guess they trained me well, because when I came down here, I continued in my ways of digging dirt and, doing the deed and doing what needed to be done to get some of these criminals off the street.
Yeah, yeah. And, man, I don't know, how you feel about it right now with you being out of the business or retired from the business. But, one thing that what you're doing today, I feel is really important, because think about it. My wife tells me all the time that she thinks I suffer from PTSD. There's a huge percentage of us as law enforcement officers that suffer from PTSD and don't even realize it. And it may not be necessarily from a serious attack like you had to suffer. It could be from something that we've seen by going to an accident call or a shooting or something like that. It could be any of the nastiness that we see in this job. So what you're doing today, really sharing your story and sharing how it's affected you, man, is really powerful. And I know that I'm hoping that this episode and your story helps officers that may realize that, he's right. I may be suffering from the same thing, because here's what's going on, Maybe I need to go seek out and get some help or whatever, instead of trying to ignore it. Because like you said earlier, when we were talking in the beginning, you mentioned, for some reason we have this idea in our heads that we have to have this macho attitude, suck it up, buttercup, and move on, rather than actually reaching out for help sometimes. Sometimes we need to reach out for help to our buddies,
I agree with you there. Like you and I, we both did what we did, and did it the right way. But there are people around us when we were in the agencies, or the agencies that we worked for, that you can tell there's something not quite right with, and they don't want to appear weak, or they don't want to appear like they need help. But we know just from being around them that they're not right. And unfortunately, I went from I ended up being in that situation. I ended up being a person who's not right. And it took going to work on a Monday after the trigger, where it took me to break down in front of a sergeant, and I said, "You need to get me help now because I am in a bad place." And they sent the captain down to my office because I was an investigator in the south end of the county, and he came over and tried to find out what was going on. And they set up an appointment with a psychiatrist and what have you, and they did the best that they can do at the time. And I just want to say that some of the agencies are not, I don't want to put it that way, some of the agencies don't know how to get help for officers that are broken, I guess is a good way to describe it. I was broken and I still am broken, and they don't know how to handle that, Mike. So that's another.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I can see that today. Fortunately, I think that the agencies are starting to recognize that. They're trying to move, they call it officer wellness and stuff like that with these, trying to make it sound fancy. But luckily, we are starting to move in that direction where where they're starting to realize they need to help officers and focus on the officers rather than focus on other things, which is good. But, like you said, I still believe that there's officers out there, and there's even agencies out there that are kind of stuck in the past that aren't necessarily moving in the right direction. So, for those officers that are out there that may be suffering in some form or fashion with PTSD, what would be your advice to them?
Well, start small. Start with a family member. Start with a wife or a girlfriend or boyfriend or what have you. Start there. But you have to start somewhere. You have to remember that you are just a human being, even though deep down inside you're thinking you're tough and you can handle anything, and because we've seen and done a lot of things that the normal people don't. But you have to start small with a family member, and then open up to your coworkers, and then your department, because you don't want to end up broken where you lose a career like I did that I love so much, or that you don't want to end up at that point or stage where it's either leave or be fired or what have you, which is sad, because it's like I felt like a used rag. It was like I did 19 years with this agency, but then towards the end it was like they were not trying to get rid of me, but they had no control of what I could do or where I could work. So they were more or less done with me, which is sad for people that love that job,
Yeah, yeah. And it's not only think about this too, man. I mean, the profound effect that all of that had on you, but also that effect that it had on your brothers that you worked with, the brothers that you cared about, the brothers that you thought about when you went back to work early to help with the hurricane. Whether we recognize that or not, it affected them too, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they loved you. You know what I'm saying? They loved you. You are their brother, just like they were your brothers and sisters.
Yep.
And to see that happen to you had to have an effect on them.
I know.
You and I. Go ahead.
I know. During that July 22nd attack, I had worked in the North End midnight shift before they transferred me to the South End, and I know because I talked to one of the officers that they were coming from 25 miles away, and they had to be ordered to not respond to the incident because they were coming down full, lights and siren going and what have you. So I know, like you said, there is love and there is care and there's because we go through a lot together as